Hi, everybody. This is Nicholas Robb with Hoverlay. I'd like to welcome you all to a new installment of our Immersive Media Trailblazers series. Today, we have a very special guest from Scottsdale. Hi, Jennifer.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Nicholas.
So, Jennifer Gill is the Deputy Director for the Canal Convergence Art Festival, Art Exhibition in Scottsdale. It is a large free public art event, and we're going to hear more about that event in a few seconds. And Jennifer also has brought augmented reality to Scottsdale Public Art a few years back. We first started to talk about augmented reality, and the least I can say is that there's been a lot of different exploration and some amazing work that's been done by her spearheading that initiative and the whole Scottsdale Public Art team. So I want to thank you for that and thank you for sharing your experience today. We're going to go through a first presentation by Jennifer to level set everybody about what's been done in Scottsdale with regard to AR and art in general. And then I've prepared a few questions after that. And as we typically do in those sessions, we'll have an open mic at the end. So keep your questions, type them in the chat, or you can just take over at the end and just unmute yourself with your questions when we get to that section. We're going to wrap this up in an hour. So I think we have time for questions at the end. And without further ado, Jennifer, welcome. Thank you. And you can take it from here.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Nicola. And thank you to you and to Hoverlay for having me here. I'm really excited to chat with you all today. As Nicola said, I will be giving a brief presentation just to kind of give you a point of reference of what Canal Convergence is, if you are not aware, and how we've started to integrate augmented reality into the event from start until now. So with that, I will share my screen and I'll try to keep it as fast-paced as possible so we can get to the Q&A portion. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. So here we are. Like Nicola said, I'm the Deputy Director for Canal Convergence. I've worked on the event for about 7 years now in different capacities. And then in 2018, really taking on the public art curation and management component. So yeah, first and foremost, we'll start off with the basic question of what is Canal Convergence? So it is a 10-day free public art festival that happens every November. We typically have between 10 and 15 large-scale light-based public art installations. We also have nightly music, beer and wine garden. We have different artist-led workshops, actually a broad set of different educational opportunities, both before the event and during, live dance performances, and of course, augmented reality artworks and experiences. So where is it? So as mentioned, I'm based in Scottsdale, Arizona, and the event, Canal Convergence, takes place at an area called the Scottsdale Waterfront. You can see the image here at the top. It's about 1/3 of a mile stretch from end to end, and it's the canal, the Arizona Canal, which for those of you who don't know, it's the Phoenix area has a series of canals that run through that provide water to the valley. We are a desert city. And so these are all man-made canals, and they are managed by a group called Salt River Project, and we work very closely with them for Canal Convergence as well. So in this area, we put artworks both in the canal, suspended above the canal, and on all the surrounding banks. And then as for who presents it, so I am a part of Scottsdale Public Art, which is a branch of Scottsdale Arts. We are a private nonprofit, and we are employed by the City of Scottsdale. So we manage the Scottsdale Public Art collection for the city, and Scottsdale Arts also has multiple branches, which includes the Scottsdale Museum of Contemporary Art, the Performing Arts Center, Scottsdale Arts Learning and Innovation, and of course, Canal Convergence is another large part of that. So the City of Scottsdale, they provide about 80% of our funding for the event. So they are one of our main supporters and sponsors. And then we also have Salt River Project, which I mentioned, to give us the permission to actually do all this amazing stuff on the canal. Because it is an active waterway that supplies water to farms and people, and yeah, keeps us going here in the valley. So next, I'm going to just run through a couple different images so you get an idea of what the event looks like. Here on the screen, I have different art installations. These are more recent. We started officially in 2012, so last year is actually our 10-year anniversary. So we have lots of different images I could go on and show you, but this is just kind of a sampling, so you can see different scales, things in the air, things that shoot fire. So lots going on at Canal Convergence. It's always very active when it comes to the artworks. And then we also have our educational programs. We do public art tours. We've had bicycle rides in the past, all different kinds of activities, typically relating to our themes, which I realize I did not mention when it was on the screen earlier. What we focus on is water, art, and light, interactivity, sustainability, and water conservation. Those are kind of general themes that we like to look at for the artwork and programmatic components. But also starting in 2019, we have an overall featured theme, and that changes every year. So depending on what that is, that will inform what kind of artworks are presented that year, and just kind of the general kind of flow of the event themes and programming. We also do, as I mentioned, live music, dance performances. There's a couple of sample images here. Then we also, like I mentioned, sustainability and water conservation. So we work closely with the City of Scottsdale, the water department, and the solid waste department. We strive to be a zero waste event, and you know, really kind of lean into the fact of making sure, you know, everything is sustainable and different practices that we do on site, and also working with the artist and trying to have the processes they use and materials to be as sustainable as possible. So that is Canal Convergence in a nutshell. So now we are going to talk about how augmented reality came to be a part of Canal Convergence. So first, I'll backtrack a little bit and tell you a little bit about how it really came to my mind. And that really, you know, I was aware of it as a technology, but I didn't really consider it in the artistic realm until I actually saw it in action when I went to see Desert X, which is an exhibition that happens in Palm Springs, a public art exhibition every 2 years. And in 2019, artist Nancy Baker Cahill had several augmented reality pieces that were a part of the exhibition. And it really stuck out in my mind, seeing this kind of different form, you know, where you're more used to it and a little bit like, you know, Instagram filters and things like that. It's really can be taken to that next level of this beautiful artistic installation and an art piece, and something that really kind of goes beyond the surface. And it really intrigued me. And I thought, you know, for Canal Convergence, art and technology is another thing that is always, you know, being a light-based art event. The technology component is definitely something that we are interested in. So that began to kind of pique my interest, and I started kind of looking into it more. And then 2020 came around, and the pandemic happened, and everything changed, as we all know. So one of the things, I mean, the pandemic in 2020 was a bit rough, as we all know, for a variety of reasons. But there were some, you know, possible good things that came out of it, at least for us. And one of them was the inclusion of AR. So what we realized in 2020, of course, is that we couldn't really do any of the in-person programming that we were so used to doing. One of those things was really having the public engage with the artists and have artist talks, for example. So we saw that, you know, through some research, and we came across Hoverlay, and I connected with Nicola and started having conversations about the artwork, but also this additional component of having these holograms or different studio tours, different things. This, the images and some of the artworks. Go on to the next slide, kind of list things out a bit more. So yeah, this kind of behind the scenes or experiences, which created a really great opportunity for people to be able to connect with artists in a more, visceral way, but with remaining socially distanced, and something where you could have it right there on your phone, but you could still see them. It's like they're standing there talking to you. They pop up right next to their artwork, and they are engaging with you through your phone. And so that, plus working with augmented reality artworks as well. Another thing that was very kind of social distance friendly. So it just was this great opportunity, and we started off with 2 AR artworks, working with artist Casey Farina and Jen Urso, and all of the art installations, well, except for one, nearly all of the art installations in 2020 had the augmented reality experiences that went along with it. So that was an interesting year. But one of the main things that came out of it was that augmented reality was very interesting and engaging for the public. And there was a lot of interest and that kind of moment of awe that we experienced with people once they realized what they were doing and how they could see a whole new world through their phone, basically. And that also goes to another point of public education, which I will talk more about later. But then going into 21 and 22, we continue to expand and investigate different ways we could use augmented reality to engage with our audiences, engage with the artworks. So that included AR artworks that had physical components as well. So, we worked with artist Roy Wasson-Valle, and he had these physical sculptures that acted as activation points for the augmented reality. So that was one thing that we tried out, we found very successful. Another thing was the scavenger hunt, which was actually a really amazing activation for a variety of reasons. It included different schools, artists, student participation, really big community collaboration to create this fun scavenger hunt game that really guided people throughout the canal. And it was very, very active in this kind of gamification, almost, I'm sure many of you are familiar with Pokemon Go. And that was kind of one of the early AR activations that was mainstream. And so kind of taking that gamification and bringing in the art component and pushing it all together, another great success that people really enjoyed. And finally, something that was really great for Salt River Project, they in 2021 were not quite ready to return in person with their staff to do their canal tours that we have as a part of Canal Convergence every year. So we worked with them to create these augmented reality tours, so people could actually still have this tour, this unique opportunity that only happens during Canal Convergence, and do a self-guided version, so they wouldn't have to miss out just because of pandemic restrictions, things like that. So one of the things that I also just want to mention, first of all, on the right-hand side, you'll see the various artists that we've worked with throughout the years for our augmented reality artworks. So this is from 2020 through to 2022. And they all had very interesting takes on augmented reality and has slightly different kinds of ways of activation, where one was entirely in the AR, like Roy, which I mentioned had the physical components. It's been a really exciting process for me as a curator and public art manager to start engaging with artists in a new space, in a new field within the art world. And, it is still very much new and evolving, but you meet artists are very unique, of course, and you meet different kinds of people, and augmented reality artists have a new, different sensibility and a new approach to public art. Something that, a traditional public art artist might not necessarily see or do or be able to see in the same way. So that's a really fun, engaging part for me as a curator. But also it's the opportunity to present augmented reality as a new medium. and this also led to us creating a augmented reality workshop to introduce our local artists to augmented reality. Because one thing that I realized, myself being an artist and a painter, augmented reality basically is like a medium, like painting, like drawing. It is a tool that you can use to express your artwork and your vision. And it has all this possibility within it because it's not restricted by the physical world. It doesn't take into account rules like gravity, and you don't have to do things like engineering or wind reviews. You can create structures that are massive or absolutely tiny, and they can flip. I mean, I could go on and on, but anyway, so being able to express that to artists and alongside Hoverlay, and let me just say, this would not be possible without the collaboration and co-creation with Hoverlay. I feel like we were very lucky to connect with Nicola and his team, and they have helped us form and contribute to our AR program and also creating new AR artists. So, it's a very collaborative process with them. So shout out, thank you. And yeah, so I'll go into more details on the question part, but one thing I definitely want to talk about as well is, in addition to Canal Convergence, we also have the Scottsdale Public Art Permanent Collection Augmented Reality components. So this was really kind of leaning into more of that education and advocacy side. So, we have over 100 different public art installations throughout the city of Scottsdale. And it's for people who are in the public art field, it's when you're working with the public, they drive by it all the time. They take it for granted. They see it and it's just a part of their world, and they sometimes don't necessarily realize that there's a whole story behind this. And with AR and with these AR experiences that we were able to create and place signage with and have these moments at these physical installations, we could tell that story in a new way, in an engaging way that was not possible before. There was lots of different things, I remember when I first started, there was actually a QR code that was like an audio thing that would call somebody and you could listen to it. But I mean, imagine now you have the collections curator pop up right next to the love sculpture, and she can start telling you all about the history. So it's a really great, engaging way for us to tell the story of public art. And another part of that is creating sort of a tour, which is, always a benefit to city and tourism and things like that. We want to get people out and about in Scottsdale, and we like to support that as much as we possibly can. So, we are working with the city to have this be a part of their information and giving out the tours. And so you can really have this new sort of experience of a tour as opposed to just kind of walking around and reading a plaque. So you can see kind of a little sample of the different kind of content that we have, and we're continuing to add. So, you can see all these different installations here, and it continues to grow. And not only that, but, oh, that's right, I have the video here. Let me show that. So, see here, this is one of our permanent pieces. Another permanent piece, so you can see the hologram of the artist Mary Boots Neubauer, Wendy, from our collections. Again, just kind of different ways to engage and learn about the artworks. Especially great for people who have that strong visual connection, visual learners, so to speak. And then finally, we have bringing public art into other spaces. So this is kind of that next step, that next part of the evolution and collaboration with the permanent collection. So there's kind of fun ways to, again, bring attention and bring an advocacy for these public artworks that are throughout our city. So that can be, potentially taking a 30-foot tall sculpture and suddenly being able to place it in the palm of your hand. You can turn it around and you can look at it. You can see potentially, what the top of it would look like if you were looking down on it, something that you would never get to experience in person. And also it's just, the public art is right in your pocket. It's a new way to think about it. So that was the Fast and Furious conversation about public art at Canal Convergence and the Scottsdale Public Art Collection. And now we'll move on to the Q&A.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I'm sure everybody realizes the breadth of what you're doing with AR. I mean, it's a very broad approach, touches on very different aspects of art and public engagement. I've prepared a few questions just to kick things off, and then we'll open it up to everybody else. So queue up your questions, please, or type them in the chat, or get ready to jump in a few minutes. But I saw a number of artists that I recognize in the list, AR artists. And my first question would be to you about, how you approach curation and criteria for selecting AR art pieces or AR artists. And you mentioned, that you're grooming also local artists. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about your approach and what people on the call could take, and understand your process better.
Of course. So, as a curator, first and foremost, and this is kind of goes along with any call, but looking at the themes and really taking that into consideration. And then the next thing, which I think is, for me, a very exciting part of augmented reality is the way that it create a different form of placemaking. So augmented reality that actually works with the waterfront site, it's something that you wouldn't be able to necessarily see anywhere else. I really enjoy seeing proposals that take that into account, take into account the canal, take into account the different structures, the pathways. So it's not just, we want to create that unique experience. Canal Convergence certainly is, it's a public art event, but it is also very much a driver of tourism. And we want to bring people to the downtown. So we do want to have those experiences that you can't see in other places. Some other things that I think are really good to consider when you are applying is, in short, think big. The possibilities of augmented reality are vast. And that goes for, whether you're starting out and you're still kind of working in the 2D realm, or, you have all that software experience and 3D gaming, and you can create some really crazy immersive worlds. Both sides can do this, but, there's no reason not to. And so really kind of taking that into consideration and pushing the boundaries. That's what I'd like to see. Let's see. I don't think there's anything else. Oh, I will say though, definitely as you're pushing the boundaries, do consider the download rate. So, something that you have to consider with this kind of technology and using the phones. Canal Convergence has thousands of people to go through. That means thousands of cell phones. That means a lot of data usage. So, there's something at a certain point we need to start considering that as well. And, for us in particular, strong Wi-Fi connection has been a bit of a struggle in the past, unless it's private. So, working with people's data plans and, making sure it's something that's not 100%, going to drain their battery, right? I suppose that could be more considered on the second phase, but I just wanted to mention it because it is something that I have to consider when looking at different projects. Yeah, and I would just say the other thing is, for us, and specifically our event, we work with a wide range of artists. So that is emerging to established. So, I would say that to not be afraid if you don't have as much experience or as vast of a catalog of AR artworks that already we have shown in other places. We recognize that it is a new field, even though for some of you, and I'm sure some of you even on this call, they're like, it's not that new. It's been around. But for those of us in the art world, especially the public art world, it is still pretty new. So we understand that it's not going to be, everyone's not going to have a huge long resume. So we're open to that. And the final thing I would say, and I say this to the augmented reality artist, the physical artwork artist, whatever, reach out. Reach out to me. I think, the most successful proposals usually are when the artists reach out to me ahead of time and start kind of brainstorming and start asking me what I have in mind. Because, there's little things that you can't necessarily put in the RFP. There's a lot of information in our RFPs. There's a lot of information about the site. There's different technical specs, lots of different things. But sometimes I just encourage people to reach out to either me or other people, other public art managers who are pushing a call out there. For the most part, they want to have the best artwork possible, and we want to make that happen. So I think a conversation can sometimes mean the world.
Yeah, that's great. These are great advice. You mentioned the Wi-Fi, kind of the infrastructure side of this. Do you have other thoughts that you want to share with people who are organizing these events around what to think about when you're starting? If you've never done it before, beyond the connectivity aspect, what are some of the other thoughts you may have on being successful with the public?
So it's interesting because since 2020 we've done multiple iterations of augmented reality experiences and artworks. And especially with the artworks, one thing that I have noticed, at least for Canal Convergence, is I think overall, AR artworks that have a visual physical component with them are more successful. That is at the current iteration, because as you may have seen in the slides, there's lots of things going on. There's fire shooting in the air. There is light flashing, interaction, live music, like so much. And sometimes just a simple sign with a QR code, even though it might open the door to this amazing experience, will get missed. So I think a really great example is the piece that we did with Roy Wassenbaye in 2021, where he had these sculptures that were set along the path that were a part of the installation, a part of the narrative, but it was only one piece. So, as soon as you start to approach, you realize that there's something more that you need to be doing. And it's that kind of getting the public's attention is really, it was a beautiful piece and it had a really great kind of flow and story to it. But in the basic terms, you have this kind of lit podium of sorts, of sculpture of sorts, and it was drawing your attention right there. So I would just say that's something that you would want to consider, and consider that for any event that you apply for. What is the situation and how will the public be engaging? Mm-hmm. Whereas, if it's an event that is open for 3 months and it's daytime, nighttime, and, it's more kind of a meditative process and people kind of go through, kind of like the Desert X experience. There was no physical component to that. It was just signage or a QR code that kind of would trigger you to the right installation. And that was fine for that because you were going to seek that out. When you come to Canal Convergence, you're there for the whole experience. So you got to fight for attention.
Yeah. And
yes.
Just another question along the same lines is, you're in a very unique position because you have now 3 years of kind of, going back and trying new things and so on. Have you seen an evolution in how you engage with the public? I mean, devices have changed, like 3 years ago, not every phone could do AR, it was the beginning of that phase where most phones could, but now we're way past that point. So I'm just wondering, do you see year over year a change in how the public engages with those installations?
Yes, certainly. One of the things, again, there's not a whole lot of benefits from 2020 and the pandemic year, but one of them was QR codes. People were reintroduced to QR codes and realized how easy it was. And it suddenly became a part of everybody's visual vernacular, if you will. So, now they were scanning them to view menu restaurants or restaurant menus and things like that. But just the fact that I can scan something and something happens was a great step for us. That being said, the public education, we have realized again and again, is very important. And that includes signage, that includes instructions that are both written and visual symbols. If you look at some of our signage, you can see we actually have the icons of holding it up, and we have instructions. I mean, everything there, we try to provide as much instruction as possible without being overwhelming, because then people just step away and they don't have the time. So, you know, we try to kind of keep it broad. And also during the event, I think something that's been very successful is we have a role called our art ambassadors. So we had, you know, usually they're with the physical artworks, they help facilitate the interactivity if there is a part of that. And we found that that was key to educate our staff on how to use augmented reality, because at the end of the day, most people don't want to read a sign, they don't want to watch a video. They would rather just either figure it out, or if they can't, have somebody show them. And, you know, we're there for that. And in 2021, we really leaned into that, and we saw the highest activation for that year. We had an augmented reality information booth that year, where people could go. And that was also the year that we had the scavenger hunt. So we also realized that necessitated a lot of getting people engaged and informing them. And once they were informed and realized how easy it was, there was so much activation, and people just loved it. They were following around the canal, they were, you know, collecting the clues, different things like that. And that's like, even like the young kids were participating, and older adults were participating. So yeah, I think that education component, and you know, and I will admit it, you know, I thought, okay, 2021, you know, everyone get it now. And I think we can kind of dial it back a little bit in 2022. And wish I hadn't. I wish I had kept that info booth and pushed it a little bit more, because I saw a decrease in the activation. So I do think that it is important to continue to educate the public, or at least have that available for people as a part of our event. And again, I do think it also has to do with that kind of short attention span, especially in the context of our events. So, you know, having those people there and having people kind of walk you through it, and no, you have to have your data turned on, and you know, different things like that.
Yep. No, that's very helpful. Very good thoughts. Just before we open up, I see a number of questions, you know, in the chat. So we're gonna open it up to everybody on the call in a sec. Any final thoughts about the future? Things that you think, you know, would be ways to utilize AR that you're thinking about? Maybe that you're, you know, not too secretive, or too, you know, without.
We got some ideas, but you know, I'm going to hold some of them a little bit closer to the vest. But you know, I guess I would say that I am continually discovering new ways that AR can either help facilitate an art experience or create an art experience. So it's just kind of continuing to push, and you know, we are very fortunate that we have the support that we have as an event, and from the city and from our organization, that we have the capacity to explore these things and to try new things. Not everybody has that ability and funding to do so. So, you know, things like I would say the two things that I would really like to explore further, if not this year, then in future years. Number one would be going back to that gamification component. You know, I really enjoyed the engagement and activation that the scavenger hunt brought. So this year for Canal Convergence, our theme is the power of play. And later this year, we're going to be putting out a call for proposals for augmented reality artworks. We have our physical artwork call that's closing actually tomorrow, but the AR call will be coming later. And, you know, with the power of play, obviously that gamification aspect, I think, could be in combination with an art piece or an artwork concept. I would be really interested in seeing how that can evolve and change, and yeah, just bring more engagement to the public. Also, I think there is a really great opportunity to engage sponsors. our sponsors and different in-kind or cash or whatever level they're at, or community partners, partner events. I think there's a lot of capacity. I mean, this is less of an artistic side, but getting them engaged and involved in creating their own experiences, so they can be promoted and therefore give us money to give the artist money to make more art. So I guess that's more from a facilitator standpoint. I think there is a lot of opportunity there. The other thing that I want to say too is, I don't know about you guys, but I'm continually a little bit more each year, but like the concept of the Google Glass or the whatever Facebook is working on. Once that hits, I think AR is going to have a much people are going to use it a lot more because it is right there. Anything you can make it easier for the public.
Right.
I'm really excited to see how that's going to change people's interaction and willingness, and also therefore artists seeking it out and seeking out more information about how to engage with AR. And one thing I do want to mention, kind of going back a little bit, giving advice to artists, and I swear Hoverlay is not paying me to say this, but Hoverlay does have this thing called Hoverlay Spaces, where you can actually go in and start creating your own AR. It's not public yet, right? Nicole, you can help me if I'm misspeaking here, but you can actually start to experiment and play. So let's say you have an idea and you're starting out, to go and create a Hoverlay Spaces account and actually see how that would translate. And so if you wanted to create a proposal for me, you could actually, through this, be able to show me what it would look like. Instead of just like a rendering, I can actually see what it would look like in the platform. And as we all know, actual pictures of things are always better than renderings because they're real. So,
yep. No, that's great. And yes, there is a, especially for artists, if some of you are interested in not doing AR, just contact us. We have a special program specifically for artists to utilize the whole platform for building demos, for experimenting and things of that sort. So let us know if you're interested in that program. Jennifer, thank you. Let me open it up to questions. There are lots of questions. What I'd like to do is, if you don't mind, just unlock or unmute yourself and just jump right in and ask your questions. And in the meantime, I'll start to sift through the list of questions, just in case your question doesn't, or you're not jumping at the top of the line. So. All right, I think anybody wants to jump in?
I can go first. Hi, I'm Leonie. I'm a curator in Boston who's working on an AR project, and I have worked with Hoverlay before. And I'm wondering what type of loan agreements or contracts you have in place for these projects.
So it is the same part of the process or same kind of contract that we have with the physical artworks. We commission, but we do not take any ownership. So we commission it, then it shows for that certain amount of time. And then once that ends, all rights go back. They can show it wherever they want after that. So yeah, I know that there's lots of other potential models out there, but that is what we're working with at the time. Something that's really important to me and our organization is being able to support artists. And, so we're, even though people are like, oh, you're not actually just buying the work and keeping all those things. We're like, no, we commission it. We are getting our use out of it. And then it goes on to the artist and it's theirs.
I had a question as an artist who has used Hoverlay, and my art collective used Hoverlay in conjunction with physical works at the Boston Cyber Arts Gallery, which is basically, in case you don't know, it's a train station in Boston. So some work is visible through the front windows, and we added the QR codes that would let visitors access the Hoverlay presentations, but we found that although most of us were pretty conversant with creating digital artwork from Procreate, Photoshop, different, mostly 2D, but some 3D platforms. It was still challenging in some instances to, locate and present the Hoverlay in a way that was compelling to viewers. And I wonder if this is something that we should have contacted people at Hoverlay about, or is there an online group that you've accessed of Hoverlay artists that could kind of talk through different challenges and questions about presenting it?
So maybe I can take that part, Jennifer. So we have actually a Slack channel, and I don't know, we're probably not doing a great job promoting that, but there is a channel, a platform that everybody can join. And you have different channels of discussions where you can ask questions, support questions. You can also meet all members of the Hoverlay team with specific questions. And we typically also pass some news about, for instance, workshops or things that you could participate in that will dive into specific aspects of the platform. But this being said, I think you're touching on a very important point, which is, how do you place the content? How do you anchor the content? I think there's a whole topic around that.
Yep.
I know we had many discussions with Jennifer because there's another issue, which is that it's a night event. So we have to be, AR does not function particularly well when in pitch black. So we have to find location that have a little bit of light and things of that sort. But there are ways to do that. They're a bit more advanced, I would say. And I think the Slack channel is probably a great place to start asking those questions and see how you can do those fine and grain attachment. Jennifer, you want to add something?
Yeah. So, another thing just to that, and I think this also, and correct me if I'm wrong, it leads into the educational component and how people are supposed to activate it and view it, right? So there might be a QR code, but if it's supposed to be, viewed in a certain location and really is site specific like that, as opposed to something that can just float in a general area, or, we found that the ground stickers have worked well for us with actual, and again, it's one of those kind of post-pandemic things where people are used to looking at the ground stickers and I have to be 6 feet, and so it's something that's a little bit more a part of our mindset. And we found that, especially with the Nancy Baker Cahill piece that we did with the hourglass, it was very specific where people needed to look and view to see it the correct way. So having these multiple ground stickers, I thought was much more helpful than just a traditional kind of sandwich board sign or lollipop sign, whatever kind of format you use.
Oh, tremendous. Yeah, we didn't do that. And I can see that that's a great idea. Yeah.
We actually put the footprint here and be stand here.
Yeah, right.
Big bold letters.
Yeah, because it is, I found that Hoverlay is great, and it's also extremely specific to, as you say, a very particular location, within a certain distance of where you would prefer people to view the piece. So yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, that's kind of the fun, right? I mean, it's about that placemaking aspect where you don't have to pay attention to reality.
Thank you.
I'll just read one of the questions. Do you get pushback from the non-techie attendees?
Oh yeah. Yep. But it's that's why we have a lot of ways that we work in training our staff to kind of mitigate those angry people. But they're never angry, and for the most part, if they're that annoyed, they'll just keep walking. And that's it is what it is. But we've had some people get frustrated, and they're like, oh, my data is on, but it's not loading, and maybe it's because there's so many people there at the waterfront, it's taking a little bit longer time. Like all new technologies, there are going to be bumps in the road, and then there's going to be people that can't wait for the bumps to smooth out. And, you know, in Scottsdale, if anyone's familiar with Scottsdale, we do have a lot of snowbirds and retirees. So we certainly have that as a part of our local community. But again, that's why I feel like those person-to-person conversations are one of the best ways to advocate for AR, because you know, it's easy to get frustrated at a sign or watching a video, but when somebody is really doing their best to help you and showing you on their phone, and you know, it can be softened a bit. So I've never heard or experienced anything where it was just like, they're like, I give up, I'm out of here, this is ridiculous. We always get them.
And along the
Thank you.
same lines, there's another question. Oops, somebody had a
Yeah,
question.
no, I was going to say this. So this is Tammy, and that was my question. And the second part of my question was, are you also getting pushback from like stakeholders, or did you get pushback from stakeholders? Because I love the idea of the info booth and the art ambassadors. So did you use that social piece of it to convince the stakeholders, or how did you get the stakeholders that might have been like a little tech hesitant? Did you have any secret techniques, or were you just like, well, you will just make it conversations, it'll be great?
Yeah, you know, it's like I said in the beginning, we are very fortunate in our model that we have a lot of trust placed in us by the city and by our organization to go forward with these kinds of things. So if there was any hesitancy, it was more just like, let's see what you do with it. And after the first year, they kind of got it. It's, you know, it's all about once people actually experience it, right? So, you know, I think any pushback that we had prior, it was about just, yeah, being in person, showing them that this is what it can be, this is what it can look like. And again, it was different when we started too, because it was the pandemic year. So we had that additional part of being like, this is a great social distancing friendly way to create art and create activation. So people were already kind of willing to be like, oh yeah, let's try this. So yeah, we got a little lucky with that, I suppose. But yeah, no, there hasn't been too much pushback. And with that also being said, it's not like we went, you know, right from the go, we're like, okay, half of our artwork's going to be AR and half are going to be physical. We're slowly starting to build. We are building the amount of pieces, so it's not the whole experience. But as we continue to build, and as Nicola knows, I do want to expand the Hoverlay presence, the AR artwork presence, as a part of Canal Convergence. We will continue to push those boundaries and make it a larger and larger part that, and you know, as we build with years and as people return, they will come to look forward to it. And they're like, oh yeah, I remember this last year. What are they going to do this year? So yeah, for the stakeholders, yeah, I guess short, I never really got much pushback.
Thanks, Jennifer. We have another really interesting questions around health and safety around site choices.
Yes.
Any thoughts, any pushback, consideration with regard to that?
Yes. I mean, I wouldn't call it pushback, but certainly it's a consideration, especially when you are around streets, around parking. You know, in our event site, it is a all pedestrian area, but we have had locations, and of course, with our permanent collection, there are locations which are next to busy streets and things like that. So yeah, it is something that you need to constantly consider how people are viewing, how they might be losing attention to the world around them, right? We don't want anyone to trip and fall, things like that. So it is a part of our messaging, certainly. It is a part of our guidance and our instructions and our videos and also things like that. But, you know, coming from a public art, like a physical public art background, looking for those things as public art managers is already a part of our brains. So it's always like, okay, this is great. What could go wrong? Because it's in the public. So you always have to think about what could go wrong. And so, yes, it's something that you have to consider. But I don't think you have to look at it as a a barrier. There are many ways to work with a site and have it be safely viewed for the public. And there's also a lot of sites in the world. And if it's, if somebody proposes something that's going to be viewed only in the middle of the street, it's going to be a hard no.
Yeah, that's a great point. And another kind of technical or product related thought is that there are ways to also inject instructions as the app loads the experience, when the experience starts. So I know that, we always put something around, safety, and in some cases, especially I think mostly for the public art pieces, or it could be in the middle of a roundabout, or there could be art pieces that are very close to streets that we add specific, we worked on specific instructions that can be injected into that user experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've definitely used that as a part of our AR experiences and artwork. So.
All right, let's see here. What else do we have? Feel free to jump in again. Just unmute yourself and go ahead.
Go
If I
for it,
have
Ron.
any question.
Yeah, hi. Ron Alice, I'm in Boston. And Jennifer, this is incredible what you're describing, and I'm continuing to wonder what the residual social impact of your installations in Scottsdale, or anywhere else for that matter, has been. Somebody I know, a sculptor, said that for him the most important part of art in public places is less the art than the public that's created as a result of the art. Somebody installs something, somebody else comes by and takes a look at it, and pretty soon the two folks are talking to each other, and we have the beginnings of a community. And I'm just wondering, is there a way to track, assuming there is anything to track, the impact of AR, again, within a social context?
That's a tough question. I'm sure there is. Trying to think about, because there's, of course, our broader goals for Canal Convergence, and our AR artworks play into that in a unique way, certainly. The thing that's really great about Canal Convergence, especially being a free event, an art-based event, is that it is a very easy introduction to art. It's something that we go out of our way to make it as accessible as possible. So, somebody who has never been into a museum before, they might come to Canal Convergence and see some light-based installation that really just kind of blows their mind. And suddenly they look at the recent museum exhibition of a James Turrell show. And they're like, maybe I need to go see that museum. So it's about kind of opening that door. And I think the augmented reality component for Canal Convergence is, again, we're opening another door, not just for the general public, but for artists as well, for facilitators, things like that. Now, how do we track that? It's without kind of really calling for feedback in a very specific way. I'm not entirely sure. For us in particular, I mean, even tracking our attendance can be difficult because we are a free and open event that has no, we don't have gates, we don't have tickets, so it's even that kind of tracking can be difficult at times. So yeah, I'm not sure if I have an answer for you, but it's a really interesting point.
And it's not only introducing, for example, people to it's introducing people to each other. The folks who come together, in response to one or another of the installations that, you showed along the canal. And as I say, people start to get engaged with each other, and pretty soon you have stuff happens after that can take its own track. And, in the larger scheme of things, maybe it has to do with improving civic engagement, et cetera, et cetera. And I know these are all flighty concepts, if you will, but I'm thinking, because a lot of times in what you were describing, you alluded to stuff about that. And I just wanted to know if there is a way from your experience to really dig into that and explore and just ask questions about people who've been there. What'd you do the next day? What'd you do the next week? And kind of go on like that.
I mean, I would just say, from my perspective, I certainly have different anecdotal examples. And again, I think back to Roy's piece that I was talking about that had the physical components as well as the augmented reality components. And you're right, it really had an interesting way of connecting people, even though it is that kind of one-to-one experience. People are looking at your phone, they're like, oh, and then they're helping explain, like, oh, you do it this way. And so we have our art ambassadors, but one of the things that was kind of magical is that the public they were helping each other to figure it out. They're like, this is amazing, you have to try this now, open your phone. So we could even step away. So we saw that throughout. That was a really kind of exciting thing too. So yeah, people connecting with other people that they might not normally encounter, which is always great.
Yeah.
Real quick, I just want to say, I know it's 2:00 and I have free time, so I can stay on, but before everyone else departs, if they have to go, I just also have to do a shout out to the Scottsdale Public Art team. I am certainly, working on Canal Convergence and, there's the artwork and all the things I described, but the permanent collection and the augmented reality initiatives that have gone through that have been absolutely amazing. And they deserve 100% credit. And I'm just going to throw it out there. Tanya Galen, you're there. She is another master of augmented reality and is making it happen for Scottsdale Public Art. So.
Yeah, I can only second that. I think you've got a great team, and I think very cutting edge understanding of what to do with AR and pushing the envelope. So it's really a pleasure, and I hope everybody is enjoying the conversation and the thoughts here. There are a few more questions that I can cover quickly here. One is about long-term maintenance concern with the tech that public art managers should be aware of. Wi-Fi bandwidth is a great example, but thinking also of the stored files like hologram histories.
Well, I can say from our perspective, we put a lot of that onto Hoverlay. But the file maintenance and things like that, we're just so kind of already involved with the technology side of these files and the videos and all those things that it's not an extra thing. It's just kind of par for the course. There's not anything that is like crazy, like, oh, we need to buy more storage space because we have so much stuff. No, it all fits within. But then as technology evolves.
Yeah, and just from that perspective, think of it a little bit like a website. I think Hoverlay is a little bit like your web infrastructure. So it takes care of storing the files, of giving you tools to change the files. It covers really the end-to-end technical aspects of maintaining those experiences and upgrading them. So that's really the design point behind Hoverlay.
I will say too, about that as well. That's one of the main reasons I think that we really enjoy working with Hoverlay, because there are other opportunities and different things, and sometimes people like create their own apps. And I have talked to people who've done that. I've looked into it, and that is a heavy lift. That is a heavy lift. So working with a company like Hoverlay that is working on all those things for us, it is well worth the investment for us.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. I think we've covered everything. If not, I apologize, and feel free to shoot me an email, and I'm more than happy to send it to Jennifer, discuss, and we can get back to you by email if needed. We'll make this presentation available after the session, so you'll receive an email with the recording, and feel free to share it. And we just want to thank you very much, and thank you to you, Jennifer, for your time and all these insights, and thank you to the whole Scottsdale team for the great work that you guys are doing.
Yeah, and thank you, Nicola, for giving us this opportunity to talk about all the stuff we do. And I'll just also say ditto. If anyone has any additional questions, my email is Jennifer G at scottsdalearts.org. It's also on the website. And also if anyone wants to be a part of that email list for when the open call for AR artists goes out, I'd love to have your email. So.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, and good evening.